Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Over a Cup podcast. I am so glad that you are here. I am your host, Tara Cole, and today we are talking about praying for our teachers. In our book club this month, over Everyday Prayers for the School Year, my most recent book, we are reading through the chapters that have to do with praying for our teachers. If you have not joined our book club yet, it is not too late to join us because every chapter in this book stands alone. You can pick up anywhere and you'll be just fine. So if you go to taralcole.com/join, it will give you all the information you need to know to hop right in with our book club right now today. All right. So, as we're talking about teachers, I don't know how many of you know this because we've added a lot of new listeners recently, but I have been a teacher since 2007. So, a good 17 to 18 years. And I absolutely love teaching. I have taught in higher education that whole time, and I'm currently teaching at a state university, and I am at their Institute of Technology, which means that I'm not in the liberal arts college where when I teach writing, we're all focused on books and writings and things like that, though those are important. In teaching in the technical school, we are really focused on what our students need to know to succeed in the workplace tomorrow, even today, because I have lots of working students. I have students who are on internships through our school. I have students who are getting ready to go out on internships. And so my focus as a teacher, and especially a writing teacher, is helping them get those raises and promotions they want and teaching them what they need to know about writing to succeed immediately. And so I really love my job that I have. And I love that job because I feel like through what I'm teaching my students, I'm not just impacting that student, but I am creating generational change in their family. Because a lot of my students come from broken families, they come from families of low income, they might be the first in their family to ever go to college. And so a lot of them are there to make a better life for their family, for themselves and the next generation. That's the same reason I do what I do here. I feel like I am helping you create generational change in your families by teaching you as busy moms how to connect with Christ, even in your crazy, busy lives. That is really my primary goal in everything I do here is helping you connect with Christ yourself and create generational change in our families. And teachers are a big part of that because unless you are a homeschooling family, your teachers spend about 50% of the time with your kids. I just dropped my kids off today, and I spent the first several hours of my day dropping them off, and I'll spend this last several hours of my day picking them up. But my kids spend an awful lot of time with the teachers throughout their day. And it is so important that we build a relationship with those teachers, that we stay connected to them, and especially if you are the parent then that is homeschooling your kids, then these prayers that we're going to talk about today will be very pertinent to you yourself. And if you don't homeschool your kids like I do, then these prayers will still be great for your family. And that's one of the best ways we can support our teachers is through prayer. Yes, we can help give them the supplies they need. Yes, we can support them by volunteering and showing up in their classroom. But even if they're not Christians, and I would say especially if they're not Christians, we can continuously bring them before God's throne and pray for them. I would even suggest daily in prayer because our teachers do not have it easy. I honestly, as a higher education teacher, don't even have a clue how our pre-K through 12th grade teachers get everything done that they need to in a day. I don't know how they get all the grading done. I don't know how they plan all their assignments. It is a whole lot of work. And they invest a lot of their own personal time and money into helping our children know the things they need to know to succeed in life. And so we need to support them. And this goes, like I said, for any schooling choice. You might have noticed throughout this series, or as you heard me talk, I am really pro all the schooling choices. I have, like I said, I'm in higher education now. My kids are currently in public school. I was homeschooled my last few years of high school. My brother and sister were homeschooled even longer than I was. I have lots of friends that are in public, private, charter, homeschool, all the things. And I am really pro whatever choice God has led you to in this season of your life. So if you're really struggling with what am I supposed to do? Where am I supposed to send my kids? Is one worse than the other? I really don't think one is worse than the other. The biggest question you need to be asking is, God, where do you want our family right now in this season of our life? Because I've had friends who have had their kids in homeschool and they moved them to public, or vice versa, because they felt that's where God was leading them during that season of their lives. And for this, I just keep open hands constantly. So whenever things come up, I'm like, all right, God, are you showing me this way, or do you still want us to hang on here? I just keep open hands. And so that's my schooling stance, because I know some of you may have been wondering. So let's jump into these three specific prayers for our teachers that we're going to talk about in depth in Everyday Prayers for the School Year this month. So the first one comes from 1 Kings 3:8-9. And so this one is where King Solomon is just becoming king, and he has been king for a few years, and God asks him, what do you want me to give you? I will give you anything you want. And he tells this to Solomon in a dream. And Solomon goes and he thinks about it and he prays about it. And he decides that he's going to ask for wisdom, because he says, who can govern this great people of yours? I am just a young man. I need wisdom to govern this people. And so God is so pleased with his decision that he also gives him long life and riches, and says that no one will be as great as Solomon during his time or ever in the entire history of the world, which is kind of amazing, seeing as all the very wealthy people and wise people we have in our lives and in our world today. And so as we're thinking about this with our teachers, and like I said, any schooling choice your God is leading your family to right now, we want to ask God to please give our teachers wisdom, because no matter what your subject is or your curriculum, the tools that we're using are changing so fast. And so to teach our children adequately and to help them keep up with the changing trends, we need to be aware of those. And we need God to give us wisdom to know where to point our kids and how to help them stay on this constant wave of change that we're in. Because 50 years ago, things may have changed significantly every few years. History was history, science was science, math was math, writing and reading stayed the same. You could teach the same thing for 10 or 20 years and be pretty safe. Yes, teaching methods changed, but the basic content and the way you presented it didn't change significantly. It changed a little bit with different teaching strategies, but not in a significant way. Nowadays, as a teacher, I am having to go to continuous extra learning and extra education and professional development, because things are changing so very quickly. To teach my students even well, how to write and communicate during this day and age, I have to be considering how to write and communicate well. This AI thing has completely changed all our lives, for better or for worse. And instead of telling our kids to never use it, we really need to instruct them how to use it ethically. And as a writing teacher, that's what I'm trying to do. I teach two different types of writing. I teach technical writing and I teach communication or composition writing. And those are two completely different things in the ways I'm going to teach my students how to use AI. And so our teachers are in the same boat. If it's not AI, it's something else that they're having to teach them about in regards to their subject. And so that we need to pray that God gives them wisdom and insight this school year and blesses and prospers their efforts. The second prayer I want you to think of comes from 1 Thessalonians 5:11. And this verse talks about how our words need to be sweet and how we need to build each other up. And so we really want teachers that do this for our children. I've had some teachers for my kids, and granted, there are some truly awful teachers. I've had some as a child. I'm sure your family has ran into some, and my children have had some as well. And so, granted, there are some truly awful teachers out there that need that we need to teach our children how to handle. However, most teachers really are there because they love what they do. They strongly believe in what they do, and they want to do the best by our children, but they just get so worn out and so burdened by all the things that they're having to keep going. The thinking about tests, thinking about new laws, thinking about how to integrate this idea or that idea. They are so burdened by everything. And so we want to pray that God fills them with life-giving words and builds them up so that they can pour into our children. And so I pray this constantly for my kids because I've had teachers who were good, but they were not good for my children. Their personalities just didn't work with my child's personality. And so as we went into the next school year, I prayed about the types of teachers that God would give my son's teachers that would see them and love them and support them and see them for who they truly were. And then I would also email our principals and say, hey, I really think my son would benefit more from this type of teacher. I wouldn't request a specific one because really, depending on your school size, that may be really hard for them to accommodate. But I would just say, hey, my kid would probably succeed better with this type of teacher than this one. And God has answered those prayers abundantly, especially the last 2 years in the lives of one of my sons. He has had some fabulous teachers that really get and understand and see him. And those types of teachers really help students succeed a lot. And so we want to ask that God fill them up with those life-giving words, that he encourages them so that they can pour into the kids he has placed in their classroom. And the last one we want to talk about is Colossians 1:11, that God grants our teachers the strength and endurance they need to do their best to help our children. Because like I said, time and time again, teaching is a hard job. No matter the type of teaching you do, it takes everything in you to be a good teacher. Some days it takes everything in you to walk into that classroom and do it one more time. Because even though teachers have their own personal lives going on, they have to bring it day in and day out for those children God has placed in their classroom. It is hard for a teacher to have a bad day when she has students that she needs to take care of. And so our teachers need strength. They need endurance. They need God's Spirit to work in them to help them in these areas. And like I said before, if your teacher's not a Christian, pray for her to come or him to come to know God. Maybe you can be that spark of change in their life by inviting them to church or inviting them to events at your church. Recently, our church had a back to school prayer breakfast. And so this time around, we invited some of the teachers in our congregation. But I would like to make that a bigger community event. I've seen another church in our area that blesses a whole entire school district by bringing them in during the early training before school starts and just blessing them with a luncheon and loving on those teachers. So think of ways that your church can connect with and encourage the teachers that are around you and in your school district and in your schools. Another church I know of in those nights when you have the parent teacher conferences or other things going on, Teacher Appreciation Week, they provide snacks for the teachers and food for the teachers. That would be another way you or your church could bless the teachers, even if they aren't Christians, and start helping build those bridges and connect them with Christ. Because oftentimes we try to go in with the message and the gospel without first meeting the physical needs of people. So these are practical ways that you can physically meet the needs of the teachers in your life while praying for their salvation. And if they're Christians, pray even more for God's Spirit within them to rise up and give them the life-giving words and give them the strength and endurance they need to teach these children that God has placed in their lives. This is one of the best ways you can partner with your teachers this school year. So as we're closing out, let's join together in prayer. God, thank you so much for the teachers you have placed in the lives of our children, grandchildren, to those different children in our lives. I ask especially that you will give our teachers wisdom this school year, that you will help them to know the things they need to do to best prepare our students for the lives they're going to lead outside our classrooms. I ask that you just encourage our teachers' hearts, that you fill them up with encouragement so that they can pour life-giving words into the children you have placed in their lives. I also ask that you will give our teachers the strength and endurance they need. Teaching is a hard job. It is often a thankless job with many early mornings and late nights. And I just pray that you will give our teachers strength and endurance, and that you will continue to refresh them so that they can be there and guide the children you have placed in their lives. Thank you so much for our teachers, pre-K through college. Thank you for those who have followed the calling you've placed on their lives, whether it be homeschool, private school, public school, charter, or Christian. We just ask that you will bless those who have stood up and said, yes, I will take on this mantle and I will answer the call. We just ask again that you give them wisdom, that you give them life-giving words, and that you give them strength and endurance this school year. In Jesus' name, amen.